As a child, I was always bothered by the following question. Pharaoh's behavior just doesn't make any sense. I'm Rabbi Benjamin Goldschmidt, and we're here to discuss Parshat Beshalach. I tried to put myself into his shoes. What was he thinking? You see this guy Moses miraculously splitting the Sea of Reeds. Why pursue him into Yam Suf? Doesn't he see who's in the driver's seat? Who's more powerful? Why try to fight him more? Whether it was an a-natural miracle, or because of the wind that blew all night, as described in the verses, Vayet Moshe et yado al hayam, vayolech Hashem et hayam beruach kadim mazah kol halayla, vayisem et hayam lecharava, vayibaku hamayim. Then Moses held out his arm over the sea, and the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind all that night, and turned the sea into dry ground. Then the waters were split. Carl Drews from the U.S. National Center of Atmospheric Research created a computer simulation in 2010, how it could have happened with a 63-mile-per-hour wind. Check out the link to the BBC story on this below. It's still a heck of a coincidence that the wind blew exactly at the right timing for the Jews to pass by and for the Egyptians to drown. It's a true miracle. Personally, after witnessing the plagues and the splitting of the sea, if I were Pharaoh, I would say, this guy Moses has a few tricks up his sleeve that I prefer not to test again. Let's just let him go. To follow him to the sea is suicidal. At some point, you just have to give up. It's true, it says that God hardened his heart, but it doesn't mean he made him stupid. In order to answer this, I think we'll need to split anti-Semites into two categories. Those who love themselves more than they hate Jews, and those who hate Jews more than they love themselves. You see, with the first group, although very troublesome, historically, we were able to make it work. You figure out a way to communicate why it is beneficial for them not to persecute you. The real problem is when the hatred is so blinding that they're willing to die for it. Take a suicide bomber, for example. A human saying, I prefer to die as long as I kill a few Jews on the way. How in the world could you speak to someone who hates you more than he loves himself? Pharaoh is an example of that blind, irrational hatred. His hatred of the Israelites evolved and became more and more severe by the time they get to the sea. The process of dehumanization of the Jewish people, the brutal enslavement, reached its peak until he was willing to do anything to control them. In the Torah, we see two approaches in how to speak to hostile regimes. Moses is equivalent to the human rights activist who speaks of freedom, shlach et ami, and the right of freedom of worship. Jacob, on the other hand, is the master of realpolitik. When Esau comes after him, he doesn't try to convince Esau of his moral right to the blessings. He just chose to send him gifts instead. Fast forward a few thousand years today, and we use both approaches. When convincing others not to join BDS, or not to condemn Israel in the United Nations, we should speak like Moses, voicing our rightful national claims, speaking of the high moral standards of the IDF, even if it often falls on deaf ears. In addition, we could do as Jacob, with a more practical approach, communicating that Israel is a tech superpower that could be beneficial in partnerships with nations across the globe. Basically, you don't have to love us, but you have to understand that it will be worthwhile for you to support us. But most importantly, we need to always remember that hatred leads to self-destruction. As Rabbi Yeshua taught in Ethics of Our Fathers, Sinat habriot motzin et ha'adam min ha'olam. The hatred of any human being will literally take you out of this world, sometimes by running your army straight into the sea.